Welcome back to another episode of Around the World. We officially have reached double-digit episodes. This is episode 10 as we continue to roll along in this 24-25 NBA season. We've got a big episode today. We'll see how long it goes. I think this one very likely could be longer than a lot of my other episodes, since we're going to talk specifically in depth about some of these teams more than usual. But of course, we will start with our community question, which is nice and simple. What team do you think has had the best start to the season? And I would say this relative to expectations. So, for example, obviously the Cavs are 11-0, and we'll get into them. But you could also say a team like the Warriors, who was kind of expected to be like a 7-8 seed, who currently is at the top of the Western Conference. So, what team do you think has had the best start relative to expectations? It can be a team that was bad, expected to be bad, now they're mediocre, now they're good, any sort of idea like that. But let's go ahead and get right into the topic for today. We do not have weekly notes for this week because we're going to go so in depth on every single team, or majority of the teams. Of course, teams like the Jazz, sorry, you're not really going to get much of an in-depth conversation. So, we're going to grade NBA teams' season so far. Not contender pretender just yet. I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer for that one till we start to see the conferences separate themselves. But we are going to grade the starts of the season so far now that every team has played 9, 10, 11 games up to this point. We have obviously the regular groups A, B, C, D, and F. I will say though, think of it more as an A plus to an A minus, B plus to B minus, because some of the teams in B you could argue are really close to those teams that have an A, but I just have them in A minus at an A minus range. Some of the teams that are in a B, it's like that's not even the same level as that team. So you are going to disagree with me. It's not going to be perfect, but that's the whole point. We're at a point where it's all opinion based. You have the standings and you make your opinions based on those standings. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And if you disagree with me, that is completely okay. Let's get right into it. Starting first with our 5 teams, I believe. Yep, 5 teams we have in the A group, A plus to A minus. Starting first with the 2 teams at the top of the Western Conference, the Suns and the Warriors. The Suns look great. They did just take an L last night to the Kings in overtime, I believe, but they really have started phenomenal. And I think the reason it's so important that they have started well is because you kind of always knew the injury was going to happen, right? KD, if you guys have not heard, is out for 2 weeks with that calf strain. Brutal news. It sucks. KD was playing on a genuine MVP level. Like he was on that MVP ladder 10 games into the season. But with that injury, it sets them back. But that's why the start was so important, because them having a solid start allows for the days where Bradley Beal might be out for a week, KD might be out for a couple weeks, or could miss a game here and there. That type of cushion, especially in the West, where you can't really falter. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Suns, for example. Let's say they go for the 2 weeks Durant is out 2-4. I don't even know if they play that many games. They play more or less. Let's say they go 2-4. That would put them at, after last night's loss, 10-6. That is solid, but teams like the Nuggets, Thunder, Warriors right now, the Wolves eventually could get up there, Grizzlies, Lakers, you're going to be right back in the mix, whereas right now they're a couple games clear, 2 games clear of being, a play-in team at 6-4. So giving yourself a cushion when you are healthy is extremely important to a team that definitely is going to want home court advantage come playoff time, and especially because they are so good when they are healthy. If they have home court advantage and they're healthy come playoff time, the Suns are a terrifying team to see. Second team I have in that A group is the Warriors. Like I said, they just continue to impress. They've only had one, I believe, bad loss on the year, and that was just them getting dominated by the Cavs, who haven't lost yet this year, so you can't really blame them on that one. And they had another impressive win last night. It was a little closer than it should have been after the third quarter that was, but they just dominated the Thunder. And I know Chet got hurt during that game, and we'll get into them when we get into the Thunder. But it's just impressive. The ability to come back from having a great start against maybe subpar competition, finally playing your first really, really good team in the Cavs, getting embarrassed. To be honest, that's the best way to put it. They got embarrassed. And then coming out and playing another phenomenal team, a contender, one of the biggest contenders in the entire NBA, and comfortably getting a win over them on the road. So it's huge for the Warriors, and it's exciting because it's no longer, at least doesn't feel like, he still has great games. It doesn't feel like it's just Curry anymore. It's not Curry's got to have 30 and then Dre's got to have a good game and Clay's got to have a good game or whatever. It's just so much depth on this team. Wiggins, Kuminga. I haven't seen much of Moses Moody getting minutes. I know he has gotten minutes this year. Brendan Pajemski, Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson. It's just so many extra pieces on this team that I think that was what they needed. They didn't need another star like Lauri Markkanen. They needed more depth, and it so far has worked out very, very well for them. They sit at the top of the Western Conference. Who would have thought that? 3 weeks ago when this season started, that they would be sitting at the top of the Western Conference. So phenomenal start for the Golden State Warriors. We're now getting to the best team in the NBA right now, bar none, no questions asked, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers, still undefeated. If we look at their schedule, they have a couple more winnable games that they can go out and play. They're not playing anybody, I don't think, too difficult until they play the Celtics in that in-season tournament. So, what I mean? Like they seriously can start out this season 14-1, that type of level. And in the Eastern Conference, where you're not going to have a lot of teams that are going to be extremely above 500, this is enough of a cushion to give them nearly a guaranteed three. Like, we are 1/8 of the way through the season right now. Actually, further. I think we're actually closer to like 1/7.5 of a way through the season right now. So you're looking at a team that already has so much of a cushion. I don't think they're going to finish above the Celtics in the regular season. I really don't see that happening. But if they do even fall off a little bit, they could lose 5 straight games right now, and still be the 2 seed. No matter what happens, no matter if the 3 seed right now, who's the Pacers, wins 5 straight games and they lose 5 straight games, they're still above them. That is the type of cushion. And when you're in the East, where losing 5 straight games with this Cavs team isn't really probable, because you're going to see a Detroit and Atlanta, a Charlotte, a Washington, whoever, that just simply can't match up with you. It's massive. So right now, if I had to put money on where I think teams would finish, if I could go back and pick where I think teams would finish, I'm putting the Cavs second in the East, because the cushion already is so big that if they play 500 the rest of the way, if they go, they have 71 games left, they are, a 50-win team? A near 50-win team? Like, you know what I mean? They have that much of a cushion that they can go 500 the rest of the way and still be that good. So, and they're going to be above 500. So I don't see a world in which the Cavs are not the 2 seed out East. They look incredible. Everybody's getting love. One night it's Jared Allen, one night it's Mobley, one night it's Garland. Mitchell still hasn't even had an explosive game yet. He's just been good. And the Cavs still win comfortably. So great start for them. Next up is 2 teams that I put down as self-explanatory. I'll talk about them very briefly, and you know who they are. It's the Thunder and the Celtics. Celtics 9-2, can't ask for much of a better start. I believe just an overtime loss to the Pacers, and I can't actually remember their second loss off the top of my head right now. And then the Thunder, of course, as well. I mean, 8-2. The only loss is to the 1 seed out west, and then the Nuggets, who are very likely going to be a top 3 seed out west. So you can't really fault them for that. The biggest news coming out of both those teams is that Chet is out for 2 months, 8 to 10 weeks. He was tweeting about it last night and into the morning. It just sucks. It really does. For a guy who was hurt for his entire rookie year, missed out on a year of his career, that's just as impactful as if in 2 years from now he tore his ACL before the season and couldn't play the whole year. That he missed out on a full entire season of his career. It's really unfortunate, and it sucks to see him. I mean, we're not going to see him until January, February now. I mean, the All-Star break. That sucks. That absolutely sucks. So I'm wishing the best for Chet and for the Thunder. We'll see what they can do. This is why you go out and you get a Hartenstein, right? So that when these moments come, you can take advantage of them. You can survive with them. We'll see what it means overall for the seeding. I think that's the most important part. I think the Thunder are still going to be really good. Not that they don't need Chet, and not that he doesn't make an impact, but they're just that good that I still think they're going to be able to be at the top of the Western Conference for majority of the season, so that when Chet does come back, they can maybe make a late surge to push back up towards the top of the Western Conference. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if, now come playoff time, the Thunder maybe 3-4 instead of one or two like we expected going into the year. I don't expect them to be in the plan though. This team is too good for that. Celtics, real simple. They're just really good. I'll leave it at that. No, I'm just kidding. But that's pretty much it. They have such a deep team. Peyton Pritchard looks like a six man of the year candidate. They're getting production off the bench. They're getting production while they're not even fully healthy. Porzingis, Horford have missed games, and they just continue to win and win convincingly. They beat up on the bad teams. They've beaten up on good teams. Even the Bucks have had some phenomenal games. Giannis yesterday had an incredible game against them. Didn't matter. They were down 15, and that near halftime didn't matter. Still won. So they're just a Thanos type team. I mean, they're just inevitable. You can't stop them, and I do think it's extremely likely that they are in the Eastern Conference Finals and in the finals come April, May, and June. And there you have it. Those are the 5 teams in the A group. I'll try to go a little bit faster, otherwise we're going to be here for a very, very, very long time. And we have the biggest group of them all, if I'm not mistaken, and that is the B group. This is really the last of the in-depth teams. Once we get in lower and lower, it'll kind of just be more, you understand why these teams are here. With a few teams here and there getting more talking points. But this one, I have talking points for pretty much every single team. Starting first with our best teams in the B group, and that is the Nuggets and the Wolves. I put the Nuggets in here despite the fact that they're 7-3 because they very realistically could be 9-1 right now. They're not beating the Thunder on that opening night game. That's not happening. But their games that they've lost, they could have and maybe should have won. The Wolves loss definitely could have won that. I can't remember who I'm thinking of right now. Their other loss, I believe, was also a close game outside of the one where they got beat up by the Thunder. But at the same time, they've also beaten the Thunder. They were close with the Wolves. They're just good. The reason they're in B is largely due to the fact that they haven't, not proven anything is the right word, but they haven't shown the dominance yet. When they play those bad teams, the Nets, the Raptors, they're just too close for my liking. To be honest, I would like to see a little bit more separation. I could say the same thing about the Wolves, who are next up on the list. I need to see more separation in those games where you play bad teams. The Wolves just beat up on the Hornets and Blazers. I need to see more of that. These games should not be close for a team that's a contender. Of course, night to night, yeah, you're going to have nights where, say, LaMelo goes off and it's just going to be a close game because that's just the way it works. But I want to see more dominance from those teams. Jokic is still absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what was it, 38, 17, 15 last night. Just the most ridiculous stuff I've ever seen. He is went his way from not being on the MVP ladder through the first 3 games of the season to what I would say is first. If the season ended today, I'm picking Jokic as my MVP, bar none. I mean, the dude's averaging more points, I believe, than he ever has in his whole career. He's just putting up historic stat lines night after night after night. He's putting up 40-point games, putting up 20 rebound games, 15 assist games. It's just ridiculous. And he's doing it against good teams, doing it against bad teams. It doesn't matter. He's doing it against every single team. He's not discriminating. So Jokic would be my MVP pick right now. Nuggets, I wouldn't be surprised in, say, 2 weeks if I redid this. They would end up in A. The Wolves, who I have in B, were up in A until the final minutes of last night. They were on their way to being 7-3, on a little bit of a win streak. Got to win at home. And the main reason I was going to put them in A is because they played awful against the Heat and they still pull out wins. That's the stuff that good teams do. They play bad and they still, despite that, are able to come out and beat what is an okay Miami Heat team. Not great team, but an okay team. This has been a problem since Chris Finch has been there. I'm not going to blame it fully on Chris Finch, although last night I do think was largely on him. But the biggest problem for the Wolves, for as long as I can remember, with them being good, all the way back to 2021, I believe was it, when we first made the play-in run. All the way back to then, have the Wolves struggled down the stretch. We get leads, 10, 15 points with 5 minutes left, and we lose them. And you think back to that Grizzlies series a couple years ago, where I believe we had the lead in the fourth quarter in every game, couldn't win it. Go back to that Mavs series last year in the conference finals, had the leading game 1 down the stretch, lost. Had the leading game 2 down the stretch, lost. Had the leading game 3 down the stretch, lost. Then you go into game 4, you finally hold it. So you hold it 1 out of 3 games. That series could be 3-1 us. It could be 2-2. It could have been a sweep. It could have been a sweep for the Wolves. Like that's genuinely how good they looked until those final 5 minutes. So I'm really hoping to see some improvement for that over the course of the season. because it's really disappointing as a fan. Ant's still shooting a lot of threes, which I overall think is a very, very good thing. I would like to continue to see more of that, even on nights like last night where he chucks and it is not falling at all. Best thing for them, similar to what I said about the Warriors, the depth is really good. They don't have to rely on a superhero Ant performance to get wins. They have enough pieces that Ant can put up, say, 21, 22, and the Wolves can still comfortably win. Okay, couple teams on the list that I would like to pair together. We're starting first with two teams that I think have overperformed. Rockets and Clippers out west. You notice there's a lot more West teams than East teams, and I think you can all understand why on that one. Goodness, I'm still sick, so I apologize. I apologize for all the sniffling, coughing. Excuse me. And the water drinking. But, gotta push through, man. We gotta talk ball. Rockets and Clippers. Both of them overperforming, in my opinion. I had the Rockets, despite what I thought was a solid offseason, they kept a lot of the guys. They got Reed Shepherd. And I just said that the West was going to be too powerful and they weren't going to be able to do it. And so far, they have proven me wrong. They're not phenomenal, right? I mean, they're only 3 seeds out of where I predicted them. I predicted them at 12. They're at 9. But it certainly looks like they're going to outperform the Spurs this year, who I had the Spurs above them. Definitely the Blazers, definitely the Jazz. So, I mean, you already put them at 12 at worst now. And you have teams like the Pelicans who are hurt. Teams like the Clippers who may drop off, who I'm going to mention here as well. It's just been a great start. They're taking a jump as a team. I think that's the most important thing. It's not just Sengun going off, or despite Jalen Green going off, it's not just him. The whole team is taking leaps. Reed Shepherd starting to get a little more minutes, which does make me happy as well. Clippers, same story, overperforming I think a lot, and as an entire team. Norman Powell had the quote at the start of the year that, with Paul George gone, it's my time to shine. It's my time to shine now, and he has certainly showed that. Norman Powell has been phenomenal. Picked him up in fantasy. That's been going great. Harden also been phenomenal. A lot of turnovers. Feels like Houston James Harden days, and in that sense, obviously not scoring 40 points anymore. But the turnovers are a lot, but it doesn't matter. They really haven't been that big of an issue. It's been the problem of the Clippers, but it's not been an issue when you're winning games. So how can you complain? I'm excited to see what it looks like when Kawhi does come back, whenever that is, if he comes back. But I still have them dropping down. I think they're going to be in the bottom half of the play-in, if not one of the teams that, unfortunately, in this stacked conference isn't going to be able to make it out. Simple as that. So it's unfortunate for both of those teams because I think they're both good. I want to give them props for their start to the season, but I do think both of them are eventually going to drop down out of the play-in or at the bottom half of the play-in. We now go to 4 Eastern Conference teams here. We'll split it again into 2. Pacers and Magic, because they just have been together, feels like for the last 2 years in the standings forever. Pacers 5-5, Magic 5-6. Tale of 2 completely different stories. The Magic started out the season hot. Paulo Banchero looked phenomenal, and even with KCP struggling to shoot, they look like they had really taken a leap. And I talked about their leap is going to come natural. They didn't need to go buy pieces because they're just going to get natural developmental leaps from Paulo, Franz, Suggs, all that sort of stuff. And they looked phenomenal. Paulo goes down with an injury, going to be out for a few weeks, up to a month or more. And since then, they've gone into survival mode. Now, since the East is awful, luckily survival mode means you get to be the 4 seed at 5-6, which is absolutely ridiculous. But they're doing all they can. They don't look phenomenal. I mean, they're 1-6 on the road. But as long as they can survive, when Paulo comes back, they're comfortably going to be out of the plan. That's how bad this East is. I mean, half of the Eastern Conference right now is 4-5, 4-6, 4-7. And I'm not joking. Like, that is half of the conference. 7 of the teams are 4-5 to 4-6. So there's always going to be a chance. Just survive. Survive as best you can, and hope when Paulo gets back, you can surge back up to the top of the side. Pacers, opposite start. Started really, really slow. Or at least it felt that way. Close win against the Pistons, kind of losing to teams they shouldn't. They still are losing to teams. They just lost to Charlotte the other night. That shouldn't happen. But at the same time, they go out and they beat the Knicks and they beat the Celtics, and you're just like, what is going on? What is going on? So it's just a really, really hard team to judge and to gauge. but I gave them a B because despite all you hear about Halliburton struggling and the Pacers make too many mistakes, did they do a 2021 Hawks or that type of stuff with DeJounte Murray, and then you look at the standings and they're 500 and they're third out East. Obviously, 500 isn't the best thing you want to hear, but they're 3 seed out East. So it doesn't matter what record you're just going into the playoffs. If you're the 3 seed, you can go win a 7-game series. And they've proven that they can beat those good teams, the Knicks, the Celtics. So it's a really, really difficult start to gauge, but I have to give them credit. Despite how bad they get talked about, they're still doing perfectly fine. The other 2 teams continue out East are teams that I predicted to make a slight jump, and I, so far, am looking right about both of them. The Charlotte Hornets and the Detroit Pistons. Hornets are 4-6. They really could have won last night against the Sixers, but oh well. Those type of losses happen. Pistons, same story. I predicted them to make a jump. They already have the amount of wins that they had in January last year. They've had some clutch games. Skate had that clutch bucket, the clutch block. They lost to the Hornets on a buzzer beater, so that's also a win they could have had back. You think of these close games, they've had I think 2 games that they've lost on buzzer beaters or by 2 in the last week. They could be they could be a 500 team right now. Excuse me. They could be a 500 team right now. They could be the ones that's sitting at 4 or 5 instead of the Magic or the Knicks. So, both of these teams, I predicted their jump. I'm going to... Goodness. My gosh, I cannot avoid this cough. I predicted both their jumps. If they can stay healthy, I think they're both going to continue to make those jumps. And, got to give myself my flowers when I'm looking right so far. So, just needed to mention that. And that wraps out the B group. We are halfway through the NBA. Hornets, Pistons, Magic, Pacers, Clippers, Grizzlies, Rockets, Wolves, and Nuggets in the B group. We now move on to the groups that are going to go by a little bit quicker because I'm going to have less to say about some of these teams. The C group, the Knicks, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Mavericks, the Kings, and the Spurs. Starting first with the Knicks and Bulls. Knicks underperform, Bulls overperformed. It is a weak Eastern Conference, so it wouldn't surprise me if the Bulls can stay competitive-ish. But I think they're overperforming. And for the Knicks, I think they're underperforming. They had all the trades, and I talked about this episode to episode. It's just you can see it's going to click. It's just going to take time. They've had nights where they've put it together, and they've had nights where it's just what the hell am I even watching? Brunson really has not had a phenomenal start to the season for his standards. He's still been good, but he has not had the type of season we saw last year. You know what I mean? He has not had that type of season. And when that inevitably happens, the Knicks are going to move up, and when the Bulls inevitably slow down or the Bucks and the Sixers pick it up, they're going to drop. So, tale of two stories, I guess you could say. Tale of two halves for those teams, I think, as we continue to progress in the season. Lakers and Mavs, and I guess you could throw the Kings in here as well. I put them in C because it's just mediocre. There's no other way to put it. I mean, the Mavs are literally 500, but the Lakers are 6-4. The Kings are 6-4. I don't really know how to gauge what it means to be 500 in the West right now because it's not separated yet. Could 500 in the West end up being the 5 seed because the West is going to be so stacked? Or could 500 in the West end up being the 10 seed, 11 seed in the West, kind of like we saw last year? I don't know where to gauge it yet. Because right now, if the season ended today, the Mavericks are out of the playoffs. So I had to give all these teams mediocre because I didn't know where else to go. The Mavs did almost just get a great win against the Nuggets last night despite a Jokic phenomenal performance. The Lakers have picked it back up again after what was an ugly, ugly start. Still worried about the AD plantar fasciitis for sure, and he picked up an eye injury last night as well, I think. My goodness. I'm so sorry about the cough, guys. And the Kings as well. I don't know how to gauge them. 6-4, nice, but I'm not really worried about the regular season performance. I'm worried about how they're going to shape up in a playoff series. It's as simple as that. So I put all these teams in C, and you can see why. I mean, it's you don't know where to put them. They haven't had bad starts, but I can't put them in Nuggets, Thunder, Suns, Grizzlies type of territory because they just haven't been as good as them. Next two teams are teams I want to give a little bit of credit to, Spurs and the Hawks, just for slightly overperforming. Um, well, maybe not. Maybe overperforming is the wrong word. Slightly making jumps. We'll say that. I think the Spurs, I think, have been ridiculed a lot this season as like, what's going on with Wemby? Are they actually going to be able to make jumps and whatever? And you look at them, and in a pretty good Western Conference, they're 4-6. Yes, they played the Jazz twice, I believe. So let's not talk about that. But you can't fault them. They're near 500. If they win two straight games, they're going to be the ones sitting at 9-10 out west. I don't think they're going to make the play-in or anything like that, but I got to give them credit when it's due. And they have definitely made improvements. They just unfortunately are in a ridiculously stacked conference. Same can be said for the Atlanta Hawks. I don't think they're going to be good. I predict them to make the play-in barely. But I'm excited. I will continue to say this every time I talk about them. I'm just excited to see them actually taking a direction. The DeJounte Murray move overall was good. They didn't just stick with something that wasn't working. They decided, you know what, let's try it. And if it doesn't work and they suck and they want to get rid of Trae Young, then you've got your pieces to rebuild with. You've got Ricochet, you've got Jalen Johnson, and you'll get whatever the hell you get for Trae Young. And you just rebuild and you start again. And so far, Ricochet looks good. Jalen Johnson, last 2 years, has looked phenomenal. So you got to be excited as a Hawks fan, even if you guys aren't winning, that you very, very clearly have a direction and things to be excited about towards the future for when you're not winning, when you are going through the rebuild phase. There are the 7 teams in C. Obviously, a very short segment because they're just mediocre. There's not much to say about them. Hawks, Spurs, Kings, Mavs, Lakers, Bulls, Knicks, and that wraps out the C group. 2 teams. In D. Sorry, 4 teams in D. I have them split up. We'll put these two together. The Wizards and the Blazers, I think, are similar. The Wizards really don't look good. They don't have direction. Same can be said about the Blazers. Sure, the Blazers have Klingon, you have Scoot and whatever. But there's no positive, like, really positive signs. When you think of, especially for the Blazers, like, the Wizards just have no direction. They just stink, and they're just hoping that they can get a good draft pick and that Sarr and Bilal Coulibaly continue to work out, which I will mention. Bilal has looked great. If Sarr just fixed the efficiency, he's also going to be a great draft pick. So I'll give credit to the Wizards where I can. The Blazers, for me, though, it's just like, almost, how are you this bad? You talk about teams like the Wizards. Yeah, like, obviously, Bilal Coulibaly, Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, Alex Sarr isn't going to compete with the Pacers, the Celtics, the Cavs, or anybody out west. But the Blazers, it's like Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, Jeremy Grant, Donovan Klingon, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, Shaden Sharp. Those are actual good players, and they still just suck. And I mentioned this before to a couple other people. I don't know why they insisted on keeping Chauncey Billups as the coach for one more year. He's so clearly going to be gone after this year. It's not even a debate or a question. So why not just pull the trigger and do it now? Why not? Allow a guy to come in and try to instill a culture. Or if you pick a wrong guy, then you move on and go, okay, well, at least we didn't pick that guy. Now we can move on again. But instead, you just stuck with a coach that doesn't really do anything. He doesn't add to the team. The team still sucks. You know he's going to be gone. So why not just pull the trigger and fire him? That would be my question for the Blazers. We'll move on from both those teams. You can understand why they're in D. They just have not been good. And a team I have in D, I felt maybe a little bit harsh about doing it, and that's the Miami Heat. The reason I put them in D is just because the start is ugly. They're not fun to watch. Bam has been really bad, inefficient. Jimmy Butler got hurt. They did just get a win over the Wolves last night, but that was more so on the Wolves playing awful than the Heat being good. And the more I watch the Heat, I'm just like, I can't see you beating a good New York team. Pacers, Celtics, Magic, Cavs. I can't. And I think we're going to be in another year, and it pisses me off, where the Heat are going to be like in the play-in again. They're going to be like 7-8 seed, win a play-in game, go play Boston or Cavs in round 1, maybe win a game, make it interesting for a couple days, and then just lose and get eliminated, talk shit, and it means nothing. That's what I think is going to happen again. And I think moves are finally going to be made. Jimmy Butler, I think, is going to be gone. I don't think Bam's going to be gone. I think they're going to build around Bam and Tyler Hero, but I don't like the direction at all. Maybe I'm being too harsh on them because I am. I can't lie. I've low-key got some bias against the Heat because I'm not really a fan of Jimmy Butler. They've just made me pissed off over the last couple of years by just being a low seed and not caring about the regular season. I hate that. I hate people who don't care about the regular season. So maybe that's why. But ugly start. It's just I can't see it honestly getting better. They're 4-5, and I'm just like I don't. This might be the best it gets. And again, maybe I'm being too harsh, but that's my opinion on it. Pelicans I put in D. Felt like it would have been too harsh to put in F, but just on a grade, like if you graded them based on their record, they're definitely F. But I can't put them in C. Right, they're not mediocre. I have to put them in a lower group, so I put them in D. So many injuries. Zion out now. They've had McCollum injured, DeJounte Murray injured, Jordan Hawkins injured. It just sucks, man. It really does. And I predicted the Pelicans to be pretty high. I predicted them 7. I thought they were going to be good. I thought the moves they made were good. And we'll never know at this moment whether or not those moves are right. And even if we do see if those moves are right, it might be too late in the season where even if they make a little run, they'll finish like 10th out west at best. So it just sucks. It really does. There's not much to say if you're a Pelicans fan. I'm sorry. 4 teams in D. That was the Blazers, the Pelicans, the Heat, and the Wizards. And we wrap it out with 4 teams in F. Pretty self-explanatory. Start with the 2 teams I'm going to run through real quick. The Jazz and the Raptors. They're just bad. The Jazz, I really thought they usually get out to a better start and then slow down. They just have been ugly all year. You have people to look forward to, I guess. Cody Williams, Zaya Collier, Markkanen, I guess, if you want to. You guys are keeping Markkanen for whatever reason. So I just don't like it. We'll see what the Jazz can do. They'll probably make some moves, trade some people at the deadline. But, I mean, yeah, there's nothing else they could be than F. They're worst in the Western Conference and tied for the worst record in the NBA. So, Raptors, similar story. They actually have had some positives. I'll give them that. But being 2-9 in this shitty Eastern Conference, not a good look. Not a good look at all. So, how exactly can I be nicer? Sorry about the beeping. How exactly can I be nicer to you than putting you in F? I also put the Sixers here in F. Again, I could have been nicer, I think. Maybe could have put them in D, similar to what I did with the Pelicans, but I don't care. Not that I don't care if Embiid's hurt and Max is hurt. This team's too good all around to be sucking so bad in the Eastern Conference. And yes, they have played some Western Conference teams, so give them some fault for that. And they have lost some close games. But no matter what I say, they just have to be better. They're an F right now. They certainly won't be an F later in the year. They're going to be a good team. Like I said, if they go on even a 4-game win streak, they're ridiculously high out East. They're back to like 5-6 out East right now if they go on a 5-game win streak. So they'll be fine. I just had to be harsh. I feel for Sixers fans now that Max is hurt, but Embiid will be back. I think in two days. I think in Wednesday. On Wednesday is when his first game back is. So hopefully Embiid is healthy. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and you guys can boost your way back up. The Eastern Conference final team is the Milwaukee Bucks, and I've gone in depth about them so many times, and I talk about them every episode. So I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. They suck. Fire Doc Rivers. Giannis, you're phenomenal. I hope you are. I hope the reports we're seeing are truly you. I hope if you are wanting to leave, that is true. I hope if you wanted to stay, that's true, because you are too valuable a player to let rumors kick you out of this town. There's no reason Milwaukee should be kicking out Giannis. It should all be Giannis' decision. If he goes and tells front office he needs to leave, then they need to honor that. I hope it gets better. This is the F minus. This would be the lowest possible team. The Raptors and Jazz you can expect to be an F because they just suck. The Bucks have been healthy for most of the season. Still in Chris Middleton, obviously, and they still suck. There's no reason this team should be 2-8, especially in this week Eastern Conference. Yes, they play the Celtics twice. I can give you that, but they're too good. They're too good, and it sucks. And I want Doc Rivers fired. I'm gonna keep saying it. Fire Doc Rivers. I'm tired of this shit. Fire him. And that wraps it out. Sorry to end on such a harsh note there. 4 teams in F: Jazz, Bucks, Sixers, and Raptors. But I will say I think the Sixers are very likely to pull themselves out of that F likely in the next week or so. And there you have it. That is my grades of every NBA team so far. I might have been a little harsh. I might have been a little nice to your teams, to teams that you disagree with. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, both on YouTube and on Spotify, what you guys think. I'm never going to take any offense if we disagree. I might explain my side, but I can always understand where you guys come from, unless you sit here and tell me that the Bucks are good or some dumb shit. Maybe then I'll be mad. But I can understand where you guys are coming from on all the decisions and opinions that you guys have. If you made it all the way to the end, I really, really do appreciate it. If you are watching over on YouTube, be sure to go check out the podcast on Spotify. Be sure to give it a 5-star review. It really, really is helpful to grow the community over on Spotify. Just look up Around the World, look up Wordy Boss 30. You will find me. If you are listening, come say what's up over on YouTube. It is Wordy Boss 30. You can also look up Around the World podcast. You will see it. Look up one of the episodes. You'll be able to find it. So it's really helpful if you guys support both, even if you only listen or watch on one of the ones. Be sure to go leave a good review, leave a like, subscribe, whatever, on the other one, because it really, really is helpful to grow this community that we have right now. Like I said, if you made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching or listening, and I'll see you guys on Friday for episode 11 of Around the World.